Welcome, Rick van Leuven, to the Massive Change Show. We met, I think, through LinkedIn, and we had a great initial conversation. I think it was the longest intro conversation that I've had with somebody because we immediately we're like old friends. So, which is funny, you being a former NYPD cop and live in New York and the restaurant business, and I'm just a college dropout from Idaho, So it's kind of funny how quickly we bonded. But maybe it's because we're two pissed off white dudes about what's going on in the world. So anyway, welcome to the Massive Change Show.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So you have a very compelling backstory, and so let's hear as you called it in before we hit record, just the Reader's Digest version, because there's some good shit in there.
Okay. I went into New York City Police Academy at 20 years old. Impressionable young age, obviously. I had 13 and a half years on a job. I sustained a pretty serious leg injury. And due to my injuries, I was forced to retire. I'd reinvent myself. I got back into baseball. I had played before I became a cop. I worked as a Major League Baseball scout for two different organizations in the American League. Did that for a few years. Fell ass backwards into a nightclub in Key West, Florida, called Rick's and Dirty Harry's. Did that for about 10 years. Morphed that into a career in the corporate restaurant world. Did that for the last 10, 15 years. I had my own consulting firm where I helped other establishments, whether it be nightclubs, restaurants, bars, offering services in security-related fields, operational systems, P&Ls, soup to nuts. And with the decline in the restaurant world, that market's kind of dying. So I've kind of sliding into retirement.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically my life story in a nutshell.
And we can edit this out if you don't want to mention it, but be curious to see if you'd be willing to talk about your overcoming a pretty major illness.
Oh, sure. Yeah. During COVID in 2020, I was diagnosed with end-stage liver cancer, which was, by the time I was diagnosed, it was pretty obvious. I was completely yellow from head to toe. I had pretty serious ascites. My stomach was very distended, and again, it was during COVID, so it was quite the experience being in the hospital, basically all alone. You couldn't have visitors and such. And I was once I got on the transplant list, I was so sick. I was done. I had weeks left, and I got on the list. I went to the top of the list due to the severity of my illness, and I was transplanted on January 9th, 2020. And I've been surviving ever since. And fortunately, through organ donation, we see stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Through organ donation, a lot of lives have been extended. And
right.
I was fortunate enough to be one.
Yeah. Wow.
And I spent the rest of my days, the last 5.5 years, trying to earn that gift.
Yeah. Well, this sets us up. Oh, go ahead, Virginia. Sorry, please.
No, it is moving, and it takes courage. And I don't think it's only, the organ donation matters and it does make a difference, but it's also the body heals if it's ready to heal. I mean, this the fact that your body didn't reject it and that you're, in good health now and working has a lot to do with who you were before and who decided you to become after that as well. I mean, the body responds to that kind of thing. So
Well,
congratulations on that part.
thank you. I'm a stubborn SOB. I don't like to lose. So I think
Yeah.
that's but it also, you know, you just have to have faith in that in that everything's going to work out. You got to keep a positive attitude,
All
and
right.
some folks call it God, some the universe, some whatever you want to call it,
Whatever you want to
uh,
call it. Yeah.
whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But you got to have faith in it.
Yeah. I agree very much. And so, your story by itself is almost like a movie, like I could see, I don't know, I don't know who would play you in it, but just
Well, Jimmy
it,
Stewart's dead, so I don't
you
know.
can't, yeah, right. It can't be Jimmy Stewart. Yeah. Maybe Vince Vaughn. He would kind of play that
Vince
kind of
Vaughn.
character. Yeah. But just, if you, there's the author from Florida. He wrote Striptease was in one of his most famous books. His name escapes me now, but it's almost like that kind of story. It's like a uh, NYPD, because you were in like not just regular beat cop. You were doing some like
Yeah, no,
special
I
shit, right?
yeah, I went on in '83, um, on the heels of some massive hiring because the city was bankrupt for so many years, so they needed thousands and thousands of new cops. So I went on at a good time where you could really move up pretty quickly if you were so inclined and you worked for it. So I got into plainclothes after a couple of years, got into any crime at a precinct level, which is you get to grow your hair long, grow facial hair, you wear street clothes, and you don't have to answer the radio, you don't have to hand out parking tickets and that kind of stuff. You're going after serious crimes, burglary, robbery, serious felonies. Um, and then I was recruited into something called the Warrant Division. We're basically bounty hunters, really. We were going after the worst of the worst that the city had. Serious felonies, murders, rapists. And this is during the crack epidemic, so we were quite busy. And we had citywide jurisdiction. So my work would take me to Brooklyn, it'd take me to Staten Island, wherever, Manhattan. Uh, and it was probably the dangerous job in a police department because you're knocking on a guy's door because he stole a car the year before, but
Mm-hmm.
last night he could have done something more serious. He doesn't know why you're there. You don't know what he did. You don't know
Yeah.
the layout of the apartment. So it was a very dangerous job,
Mm.
and but you got to rely on your partner, rely on your training, and rely on common sense. Um, but it was great.
Yeah.
I loved working in the warrant division. Uh, After a couple of years, we had morphed with the state police and created a task force called the Violent Predator Task Force. And I was teamed up with a New York State trooper. That was a lot of fun too because we got to work with another agency. And initially, they wanted to call it the Violent Task Force. It's like,
That's some bad branding.
that's some bad branding, man.
Yeah.
Suppose you got to
Yeah.
shoot some guy, and it says, Detective Rick van Leuven of the Violent Task Force shot and killed. I'm like, yeah, that's
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that sets us up for the
Mm,
first question. Why we wanted to have you on, because we talked to
yeah.
system shakers, and so I say this too, is that you and I are both anomalies. I just jokingly or half jokingly say there's a 76% chance I'd be a Trump supporter, you know, white, male, straight, rural, non-college educated, blah, blah, blah. And you, again, former NYPD entrepreneur, like, you've been in kind of the trenches of both law enforcement and, nightclubs and bars. This isn't like it's, yoga studios. Yeah, you come out of that, you're in that, and you're in that space, and the way that how eloquent you are about your opposition to this administration, to fascist tendencies, all those things, whatever you want to call those things. And so that sets it up for Virginia, for you to ask the first question, because I'm kind of, I kind of know the answer because we had the introductory call, but I think that sets it up to find out, like, why are you also an anomaly? So go ahead, Virginia.
Well, but before I ask this question, I think that is something is related to that, but I would like you to talk a little bit about this. Is what you have described is a very resilient person. I mean, you have reinvented yourself many times, and in careers and jobs and profiles, and all it takes that it will seem completely unrelated. And I can relate to that because I went to law school first, and then I worked on communication for development and social change, and I became an activist, and I was in the nonprofit world, and then I became an academic and into complexity science and like quantum physics and very like hard sciences, and then got my coaching certifications and became an entrepreneur. So it's people think about my path as Virginia has been jumping from place to place and changing too much, and she might not know what she was doing or what she wanted. But for me, the connection, the pattern was very clear. I mean, there was a pattern, there was a unified purpose on anything I did. So my question is related to that. Did you feel through all this process of why you became a cop in the first place, and then why you move into your new phase and the next phase, there is a pattern, there is a purpose that you can identify there?
That's a great question. And your background's really impressive, by the way. Wow, that's
Thank
quite
you.
impressive. Um, I grew up in the restaurant business. My dad owned a restaurant when I was a kid. And I grew up cooking with my mom and my grandma. And I always loved being in the kitchen. It's just something I find it cathartic. So that part of it was a pretty easy transition for me. I never imagined I would do that. So when I was 32, when I was injured on the job, and um, when the police surgeon told me that I was done, I cried for days because there's a couple different kinds of people that become cops. There's people that are born to do it, like me. That's all I've dreamed about my entire life. And then there's, the guy whose mom's busting his balls. What are you gonna do with your life? What are you gonna do? You take the police test, and they take the test. And then there's the guy getting out of the military, and it's kind of an easy transition for those folks into law enforcement. But I was that guy that it's what I wanted to do. I went to school. I I studied business administration and things because it's like, what's a criminal justice degree going to get you? I don't want to be a criminologist or penal. I don't know what the right term is. But I didn't want to be a criminologist. I wanted to be in law enforcement. So when I retired, I just needed to do something. I thought about going to law school, and I'm like, I couldn't defend people. I couldn't. I was too jaded at that time still, and like I just couldn't see myself. And I was like, I don't want to be a prosecutor. I'm like, oh, law school's out. So I heard about a place that was hiring to run a baseball training center. So I'm like, oh, let me check that out. So I went and got an interview, and it turns out that the guy that owned it was an assistant district attorney in the Bronx, and I had a case with him. And so we're sitting there, we're looking at each other. I'm like, I know this guy. And he's like, yeah, I know this guy. And it turned out he had known my brother in high school years prior. So he hires me to run this center, and that's how I got into baseball. So that was kind of an oddball. That was like just out of left field. As my baseball pun, so that was just kind of out of left field. And my ex-wife became quite ill, and we needed to get out of the cold New York. So she loved Key West, so we're like, let's go to Key West. Went to Key West. I fell ass backwards into this opportunity in Key West, and I did that for, like I said, for 10 years. And when that ran its course, I was recruited to in the corporate world to go work in Washington, D.C. And I was there during Obama's inauguration, and it was magical. It was magical to be in D.C. at that time. It was, I don't know, it was just truly wonderful to live there during those years. And I morphed into more of the restaurant world. So to answer your question in that roundabout way, it was pretty linear for me too, in the sense that the path I followed were things that I've always done or was interested in, even though they're unrelated and diverse fields. It was still all part of me. So for me, it was an easy transition. Sorry for a long answer.
Right.
No, it's
No,
interesting.
yeah, it is. It is because, some people might wonder about themselves too. It's like, there is a reason why I'm doing all these things, and there is a coherence behind this. And most of the time there is. So the first question and now in this phase of your life, the first question we ask to all system shakers is, what is that big idea that you have that piss off a lot of powerful people?
I think I probably piss people off every day with my social media posts and the things that I do and say. But Justin, you're right. We are anomalies, and especially me being former law enforcement, everyone thinks because I was a cop, I'm going to be this crazy right-wing law and order, knuckle dragging, mouth breathing kind of guy. And
Right.
the truth of the matter is, it's a lot like being in the military. You get brainwashed, and you do become. I voted Republican up and down the ballot until W destroyed the country, and that was it for me. When I learned about President Obama, I'm like, I like this guy. He makes sense to me, and I've been a card carrying, hard hitting Democrat since. And just a backstory in that, everyone in my family were Democrats. I was like the black sheep, and my great grandfather, as the paper referred to him, he was the militant leader of the Democratic Party in the state of New York back in the 1800s. So I got brainwashed into being Republican, and when I retired, I kind of deprogrammed, and especially during the Trump years, no one obeys their oaths anymore. Everyone has forgotten their oath, and cops too. It's like you took an oath, and I still really believe in the oath that I had taken, because it's not just words, it's who I am, it's my moral fiber. And I'm like, I'm not going to sit idly by. I have grandchildren. I'm like, I want to leave a better world for them. So what I want to do is I pressure politicians every day through email, phone calls, I'm surprised I haven't ended up in Gitmo yet. Because I do a lot of behind the scenes thing outside of social media, and even people that aren't in my district, I reach out to John Thune, I reach out to Thomas Massey, all the both sides of the aisle. And what I would like to see, what the three things I would like to see happen, I would like to see Citizens United ended. That is the single worst thing that's ever happened
Yes.
to the
Yep.
United States of America. And, that goes back to, I think it was 1988, during the Reagan-Bush transition when it was formed. And then in 2010, another corrupt John Roberts court passed it by, I think, 5-4 margin, right down party lines. And it's been downhill since. And so I would like to see Citizens United get over to, I think the Democrats, when they get back in charge, should be concentrating these three things, in my opinion. Citizens United got to go. We have to expand the court. We have 9 justices, but we have 13 districts. And in 1869, the country had 9 districts. So they expanded from 7 to 9. So there's historical precedent there. We don't need a constitutional amendment to expand the court. So now we have 13 districts. There should be 1 justice for each district. So we should have 13. So expand the court, overturn Citizens United, stop gerrymandering, get rid of the Electoral College, because that was nothing more than a compromise for Adams so they can get done with the convention and go back to their farms. So that was just appeasing him. So the Electoral College doesn't make any sense anymore. And so those are the things that I would like to see. Those are the things that I push for. And the only way we're going to get those things done is if we have Democratic majorities in the House, the Senate, and the White House. So that's what I push for. That's what I concentrate on. Those are my, from a political aspect, those are my big ideas. From a personal big idea, I'm writing. I wrote a nonfiction book that it was more mental masturbation at the time. It was when I first retired, and I just had to get shit out of my head. And it's nonfiction, but all the storylines within the novel are true things. Obviously, names are changed. But I'm working on something that I think is actually pretty valuable. I'm working on a manuscript for a book about leadership, and Justin and I touched on that in our initial conversation. And I think that's what we lack in the business world and in politics. We lack true leadership. So basically what I'm doing is identifying what I think are 10 traits that make a great leader. Because in the business world, you have leaders and then you have managers. And a good leader leads people. A manager manages situation. You don't manage people. You lead people. You manage situations. And I think that if we can get that knowledge out there, so people lead with empathy and conviction and there's other traits, but I won't get into that. But so from a personal big idea, that's my personal big idea.
Yeah. Also,
I love
pretty bold. Yes.
Yeah. And
these are things that need to be done to, whether we move, I don't want to get sidetracked, but I just thought of a George Carlin episode from one of his skits about democracy. And it's like, you have the illusion of choice because you can go You can go to your local bagel shop and you got 50 different bagels. You can go to Baskin Robbins with 31 flavors, but you got two political parties. You have the illusion of choice.
Right. Yeah.
It's a big club and you ain't fucking in it, as he said.
Yes.
Neither am
Yes.
I. So
Yes. I think what's interesting, Rick, with what you're saying too, because we don't generally know the answer to that question when we ask it. We tell you we're going to ask
Yeah.
that question, but we don't know in advance. And you're I think probably the first guest we've had that had a political answer to the question. Like you had specific. I say political in the sense of not ideological. I mean the machinery of politics, and I think that's a reflection of your background of you've been in your background is sort of systemic in the way that it functioned, like you were dealing with systemic issues in your various careers. And we still forget that the work that we do, that Virginia and I do, we're working with entrepreneurs, founders, executive directors of nonprofits, like to do their part to get in good trouble. But there still is a political component to it. So we were talking before we hit record about James Tallarico's appearance with Colbert, excuse me. And he's I refer to him, James, as the Mr. Rogers of Texas, which is a great compliment. But he's talking about like there's specific things that can be done, that need to be done from a political perspective. So I'm curious, is kind of a setup to that long meandering statement, is one of your leadership traits that you've identified something related to kind of like civic engagement? Do you have that as, maybe you don't call it that, but have you ever seen a good leader who's isolated from reality? Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think it's very important for leaders in all fields to be community oriented and community active. Whether it's supporting various charities, the food bank, whatever the local clothing drives, Christmas drives, whatever. I think that yes, there needs to be some kind of give back, if you will. So yeah, I would say community engagement is key in leadership, because yeah, we all want to make money. You have a bottom line. You have your EBITDA numbers and you have all your controllables you need to hit. But at the same time, you have to make your customer, your guest feel valued. And I worked with a band. He referred to it as the equilateral triangle. So it's got to be good for the company, good for the employee, and then good for the guest. And when one of these things becomes skewed, that triangle just collapses on itself. And without community engagement, without civic mindedness, yeah, I think you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah,
For sure.
yeah.
I have a follow-up question that combined three things that you have mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
One is about leadership, and that the lack of leadership, that the lack of true leadership that we have now in all sectors. And the second one is community engagement and the responsibility that we have to our communities, no matter what position you are or what sector you have. And the third one is what you were mentioning about the police and the police court and the law enforcement sector, let's say. We need institutional changes. It's true. It's not just ideology. It's not just, people being activated about their rights and defend them and defending democracy, but we need structural changes as well, like the ones that you mentioned. But when it comes to the law enforcement body, in the country, there there always been some level of different kind of assumptions about law enforcement. But right now, with everything that's happening, there is even more assumptions about, the kind of morality that is behind that, and the oath, and the responsibility towards the community. But there is also a group of people, and we have seen it also on social media, that there is a sector within that law enforcement body or group that is fighting what is happening right now, and then has a different morality and values. So what do you think is the changes needed in terms of leadership? You were talking about being brainwashed and how some people have forgot their oath, but other people are protesting that as well. The same way that you are aware of that situation, there are other people that are part of the law enforcement that also are fighting that. So what do you think is needs to change there to regain the trust of the community?
It's a great question, and I appreciate that question, because I've have talked about this in the past. When a lot of folks talk about police reform, it's like, no, yeah, there needs to be some reform, but it's the criminal justice system in general. But from law enforcement specific, you look at it this way: the average police academy in the United States is 24 weeks, no, 22 weeks, sorry, 22 weeks long. The average across the world, Great Britain, Japan, Germany, it's up to 2 years. It's 2 years. You have, obviously the physical aspects of it, self-defense, that kind of stuff, firearms training, the basics. But then you also have classroom, you have practical. So I honestly, I think we need to recruit better. When I went on a job, I took the test initially in 1981. And at that time, you could be 20 years old to be appointed. So I turned 20 in August. January, I was old enough to get appointed. I went to the academy. But leading up to that, we took a psychological test that lasted 8 hours. 8 hours. Multiple choice. I forget the diagrams, what they're called. You have to draw a person, a house, and a tree. And everything you do in those drawings indicates something about you. And now that's been cut in half at best. So I think we need to recruit better. I think we need to train better. And I think that training and those psychological reviews need to be ongoing throughout an officer's career, because especially during my day, it was horrible. We were having 2,400 homicides a year due to the crack epidemic. And now they're like, oh my God, we have 400. It's like 400. We did that in one precinct. What are you talking about? So those three things, I think, as far as law enforcement goes, really need to change. I'm probably going to piss some people off with that, but I really don't care. But you see it. You see these stories every day in the press, and now with ICE and there's cops out there supporting these guys. It's like, how can you do that? You're violating the very oath that you took to take that job. So that's those three things as far as law enforcement goes. The criminal justice system in general needs, that's a whole nother Megillah, a whole nother road that you can go down. And now you got these for-profit prisons. So basically they created a pipeline to prison. You got, they're destroying education. Why? Cheap labor, slave labor. You got to work 3 or 4 jobs, or you go commit crimes. You go commit crimes, you get caught. Where do you go? Up for profit prison. So either sending you to prison, making money there, or they're getting cheap labor over here. So that's a loaded question. There's a lot to unpack with that one.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to put you on the spot here, Rick, from more of your business owner standpoint. And, I'm going to make a strong but likely assumption here that being in the restaurant business and the nightclub and bar business, you had a lot of Hispanic or Latino employees who are being racially profiled and targeted at unprecedented levels now. By the way, this whole thing, all of MAGA is built on a bunch of horse shit, but one in particular is that ICE is going after hardened criminals and convicted criminals. It shows that there's basically been no change in the number of convicted, undocumented criminals they've been able to capture and deport. No change statistically. It's all horseshit. That aside, what would you do today if you were a bar owner or a restaurant owner and ICE was coming after your people? What would you do? Like specifically, what would you do? Again, I'm putting you on the spot.
I would sequester him somehow. I'd hide him. I'd protect him in whatever way I could. And, I think it's 83% of the people targeted by ICE have zero
Right.
criminal offenses. I know, especially in New York, you cannot run a kitchen you cannot run a good kitchen without undocumented folks. They're lifeblood of the kitchen. And now in my business, with the tariffs driving up the cost of food, ICE deporting workers, good, honest, hardworking folks. So some of my best employees were undocumented folks. They were fantastic employees. So my niche in as a consultant, a lot of places they don't have money for it anymore. So my business model is not sustainable at this point because they're just some places are just trying to keep the lights on, trying to keep employees. What do they want with a putz like me? They just can't afford it. So I would protect those employees. I would do everything in my power I could. Even if I had to put them in my own home, I would. And I know the folks in Minneapolis have really stepped up. They're bringing people groceries so they don't have to leave their house.
Yeah.
They're doing all kinds of things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I noticed there was one thing too, and again, we could go on and on about this, but there were people that had that had cars, that had the key fob lock, and they would take them to the neighborhoods where they knew that there were immigrants, and they would park them there and give them the key fobs so they could use it to alert each other. And just strangers saying, "Here, take my car and the key fob," because a lot of that community in Minneapolis took public transportation. They didn't have, or they had like older vehicles. And it's just like, and I loved that your answer was like essentially you would do whatever was necessary. And I think, I did an episode with one of my best friends, Juan Kingsbury, about this. It was called Your Fight Too. This is Your Fight Too. And it was, my statement is probably the most convicted thing I've felt about all of this, which is if you're a business owner and you are wondering what your purpose in life is, this is it. This is it. This is your like fucking yes, no moment. And the rest of it's just fucking theory. That you're pro freedom and for like opportunity and everything. This is it. This is your own moment. And what you do with this is, you know, is going to be the thing that, you know, I think back to like a lot of people. It's like, what would you tell your grandkids you did during this time? And like, well, you know, nothing. I stayed quiet because I had a business to run. Yeah. As Plato said, apathy, the price of apathy is to be ruled by evil men. So, but anyway,
You know,
so
leading. I'm sorry. And
Mhm.
I watched part of that episode. By the way, it was very good.
Thank you.
But you know, it's leading up to Trump part two. If I knew someone was a Trump supporter, you know, like a business owner, first of all, I wouldn't do business with them. I, you know, even I turned two people down that wanted to hire me, and I went on their social media and I saw what they're about. I'm like, no, I can't fit you in. Sorry, can't do it, and I passed.
Mm.
I know a lot of people can't do that. A lot of people aren't in the position to do that. And one of the things I'm most grateful for is that I got to be able to be in a position where I could do that and where I could be vocal. I had people contact me on a daily basis through LinkedIn and Blue Sky and
Hmm.
other platforms that cannot speak out publicly, that send me things. Hey, can you bring this to light? And they'll send me stories and can you do this? Can you do that? Because they can't do it because of their jobs. And I totally get
Hmm.
that. Totally respect it. Um, so I always felt very grateful that, and the way I looked at it, you know, when you go through, when you're on your deathbed, you get a lot of clarity. And I'm not afraid to say, fuck that. I ain't doing it.
Yes,
I ain't doing
exactly.
it.
Exactly.
And
Give me the tingles, Rick.
yeah,
So,
you know, and listen, and you know, I know I know LinkedIn was always like a professional networking, and leading up to the 2020 election, I got really active on there. I got put in LinkedIn jail a lot, and people are like, "Man, this ain't for politics. This ain't for." It's like, dude, politics and business are interrelated. They are the same
yes,
thing. Don't you understand that?
yes,
Don't you? If you don't have these safeguards, if you don't have regulations, if you don't have if you don't have these things, you have no business. Don't you see
yes.
that?
That's right. Yes.
So you're right. You know, people need to step up and
Yeah.
you know and just do the right thing. And you know,
Hmm.
I tell people in the mag. Well, I used to. I don't. I gave up trying to talk sense to those folks. They're lost souls. I would tell them it's like, you know, Jesus Christ was the biggest liberal in the world. Well, on the
Yeah.
face of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he wasn't a leftist. I'm like, what? What does that even mean? You know, it's and when you look at someone like Donald Trump, who says and does the exact opposite of the teachings of Jesus, because MAGA loves to talk about Jesus.
Yes.
He does the exact opposite. So by very definition, that makes him the Antichrist. Because
Yes.
everything he does is antithetical to the teaching of Jesus Christ. So by
Yes.
definition, he is the Antichrist. Yeah, you don't have to be religious
Yes.
to agree to that, you know. But
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Well, I think, Virginia, based just on time, why don't we go ahead and go to the impact question and we'll let Rick go and we'll go to the second show.
Okay, sure. So the last question is, with the work that you're doing, what is the impact that you would like to see?
we'd like to see decency reign once again. I would like to see empathy reign. I would like to see emotional intelligence reign. not even just in our leaders, but just in people in general, and just to be good, decent human beings and just do the right thing. Just it doesn't matter what you call God. It doesn't matter what language you speak, what color your skin is. We're all human beings. Just treat each other decently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, when you think about Citizens United being overturned and, expanding the court, so those type of things, the impact is enormous. And it's, Tallarico said in his conversation with Colbert, like, it's not left versus right, it's top versus bottom, and that we have a common enemy in the sort of the predator billionaire class. We have a common enemy. And that's why you see people like Thomas Massey and even, like, of all people, like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert now, who work like crazy. I mean, Lauren Boebert they're both still kind of crazy, but at least Marjorie Taylor Greene has had some level of, like, she's on a redemption of what she did, it seems, is this realization that at the end of the day, people with unchecked power will use it to harm other people. And so when you talk about some of these other things too, the impact of personally adopting better leadership skills and then implementing at a political structural level these changes you talked about, it really is about, like, do you believe in democracy or not? Sadly, a lot of people on the left are kind of new to democracy as well. If you go back to it, there was in the history arc, it's like there was this realization, like, oh, wait a minute. So what libertarians used to say about big government turned out to be true. And like, there is a corruption within it. And anyway, I'm pontificating, but so we would love to, maybe when you have your book out, have you back on to talk a little bit more about your leadership ideas. It's such a, there's a lot of people that talk about leadership. It's almost like you could walk into a Starbucks and shout, who has leadership opinions? And, it's the same number of people that would say that they're into Bitcoin and real estate, So, but your perspective as a former law enforcement officer and an entrepreneur and a cancer survivor and all those other things, it's like you've been in the shit. And I have a tattoo that says the mission is in the suffering. And
I like it.
There's credibility within that. So we look forward to future non-recorded conversations, Rick, and definitely
Absolutely.
would love to see when we're in New York, or if you're ever in Mexico City, get to hang out with the carbon-based versions of each other. And I'm sure we will all continue to get in good trouble together.
Yeah,
so
keep it up, man. I love your channel. You guys are doing great work. You have some really, really interesting guests outside of me, anyway.
Well,
the
you're
other guests are
interesting.
great.
Yes, your humility is impressive. Yeah,
Well,
awesome. All right, we're going to have
another key of leadership.
Yes, humility. Yes, exactly. Yes. All right, we're going to go ahead and go to the second show. So
thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it. And be well.
Thank you. Thank you. You too.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Right.
Hey. So can I start?
Yes.
It's really
I have to confess this was a little more political, not in ideology, but politics,
machinery. Yeah, right.
Machinery that I'm used to. So I probably have a little less opinions than you do.
Well, but this is an interesting thing too, because I'm going to put you on the spot. I love doing that.
Yeah, you do.
It was like definitely from a machinery standpoint or structural standpoint, the most political kind of conversation we had, almost like talking to somebody running for office, which I didn't want to put him on the spot, but I really think he should run for something. He's got such a great story of that is very, very electable. So my curiosity to you is, in listening to that, that part of the conversation, more the inner workings of some of the political machinery in the U.S. Did it spark your curiosity about like some of that? Like, it's a little bit like when you, uh, we often joke with each other about like job descriptions, and we don't have a job description much for each other, but part of your job description is to listen, to pretend to listen for a short period of time when I talk about football. So,
But what are you implying this time?
in this case, though, it's more like because it's about the machinery. When I talk about football, it's about the story of the machinery. It's not really about the
Yeah.
rules of the game. In this
Yeah.
particular case, did it spark curiosity that from your perspective as a naturalized U.S. citizen now and living in Mexico City, from Nicaragua and that system, and fighting for democracy back in the day down there, did it spark some curiosity within you about what we were talking about?
Of course. And not just
Yeah.
curiosity. I might have less of an opinion about the specifics of politics in the United States, but I'm a lawyer I
Right.
went to law school. I'm a lawyer. So one thing that I learned in law school, and that was the reason I went to law school, knowing that I will not be a practitioner. I knew at the beginning, since my whole career, that was not the intention. The intention was to understand the skeleton of society, and what is not the brain of society, is not the laws and the structure, because they can change, they can be adjusted. The same as the brain is not like determines everything, but the skeleton is what gives you the shape and the form and the container, and allows you to move in certain ways or in certain directions. So anything that has to do with the structure is not only fascinating, because it explains a lot of things. What difference will it make to have 13 judges instead of 9, for instance? It will have a big impact at many levels, and many other things that he mentioned. So it's not just fascinating, but also I think that we all need to understand, beyond the current phases of the structure, every citizen need to understand the structure of the state, of the system,
Mm-hmm.
of the
Mm-hmm.
government, because only by understanding the structure we can understand what are the point of leverage, what are the maybe
Mm-hmm.
small changes we can make. And it's not just about elected people, it's about the structure. It's like a good structure, a good system, a system that is designed to protect democracy, no matter what, no matter who's in power, then allow us for more freedom about who gets elected, because we know that the system is going to protect itself. Right now, what we have is a very malleable, weak system that can be shaped in the form of whoever is in power. And not just talking about one person, but a group of people, right? And that they can
Yeah.
move pieces around. Like, imagine if our body was like, oh, today I want to have my femur bone like up in my neck, like just because it feels good or whatever, is more convenient for me. What is going to do to the rest of the body? So to understand the structure and the institutionality of it, and is what allow us to know where to reinforce pieces of the
Right.
system that will guarantee that the system doesn't fall apart. So yes, that was a long answer, but absolutely.
Yeah, and that's where I was thinking for kind of reading more, translating what I was trying to ask you, because I think in particular in Nicaragua, where you fought for democracy and human rights, and then you've been a real ass activist your whole life, where you're fighting power dynamics, where there's very powerful people extracting from the people without power often, and you're creating structures supporting activists and others that are learning about power dynamics, and what where I think is this sort of reckoning that a lot of especially white Americans are having is we don't have near as much power as we thought we had. Like like what's really going on with like Palantir, or these welfare billionaires, the ones that made it off of government contracts, and the relationship between large businesses and like ICE. You're seeing now like even things like Ring, the doorbell company that's owned by Amazon. They were essentially forced by the market to cancel a feature that created kind of a little mini fascist system of within inside of a neighborhood, because of the doorbells were connected together. You had that feature, and that was being used by ICE. They had given ICE access to that. So there's this awakening that people are having that you've known about your whole life, coming from places where power abuse and power, there was not an illusion of freedom. That you saw it firsthand, that it was the powerful against the powerless. And that's why I was just curious about your perspective. And I love that you answered it from like a systemic perspective too, and that these are various pieces. And it kind of goes to another observation I have, is to kind of Rick's point too, is that no one is coming to rescue democracy from fascists. No like person. There's no Che Guevara, who's a really horrible example because he wasn't a very good person, but as a symbol. There's no George Washington, also not a very good person, but there's nobody like that. It's us. It's the body politic. It's the people. And which is the ultimate test of a democracy, is what the body politic will do when it's being attacked by authoritarian power structures. And this is it. This is what it is. This is the stage that we're in now. There's no question in there. It was just me, like, because it's always fascinating to me, like, you have a perspective that I can only understand almost academically. I wouldn't even say intellectually. You have a perspective, so it always makes me curious to see how you see something especially when we're talking about the machinery of things. And anyway, that's where that came from.
I agree with something that you said, and I think it's very important that we emphasize that nobody's gonna come saving us from anything. I mean, there is no Superman, and I'm not even talking about humans, like regular humans, but there is no Superman, let alone superhumans. I mean, nobody can save us as collective. The collective cannot be saved by a small group of people, let alone by an individual. And also, we don't want that, because I think that there is a delusion, not even illusion, but delusion of representation. Nobody can represent you truly, fully. Nobody is in your skin. Nobody has your history, your background, your experience. Nobody can truly represent you. Those are political, structural, convenient positions and figures to make government less chaotic and like easier and convenient for some groups, for the political groups. But when we talk about true representation, nobody but you can represent yourself. And in complexity science, we have this principle, let's say, that is nothing about me without me. Meaning that if it's going to affect my life, it's going to affect my family life, my community life. I, not anybody, I should be there having a voice and having a vote
Yes.
and be part of the decision making process. And that speaks for democracy, that speaks for environment protection, that speaks for human rights, that speaks for
Right.
we need to step up and stand up and really represent ourselves and represent the people that are closest to us or that cannot represent themselves for mostly political reasons and safety reasons and other things. Do our best to represent them, but do not expect somebody to represent you and your rights and your interests and your values on your behalf, especially when you expect that person to represent many other people that are different from you. You have to represent yourself. I think that is a civil duty and a human responsibility that nobody's going to save democracy. We have to do it ourselves.
Yeah. And there's a lesson to learn from how organized and how you could say like disciplined from a messaging and structural standpoint that MAGA became. They became that there's a it is a there's lessons to learn from your enemy about taking their version of we may not we I believe, and most of us believe, that their approach to what they want to do is evil and gross and dehumanizing, but they are taking ownership of it, in school boards and running for office. And it's not just a top down, Project 2025 Heritage Foundation, Steve Bannon, Stephen Miller type thing. It's not just that. It's individual people weaponizing, bastardizing, corrupting democracy, but they're still doing it in a way that's representative to them. And I think it's what I've said many times about sort of middle class America, apathetic. You could call it moderate. They say they don't really care about politics. Well, if you've outsourced if you've outsourced all that to apathy and you say, well, I don't really care, you've already lost. You've already surrendered. It's like you are going to be whoever wins the power struggle is going to use you as a source of extraction. And so, like you said, and like Rick said, it's civic engagement from a more conscious level is the key to me. It's like to be able to have critical thinking. Like I said this when we were talking to him, I was like, I could prove this. Every single fundamental thing that MAGA people believe in is a lie. From the history of the country to white Jesus to election denial to climate denial to the Epstein files, it's a lie. And so the same conditions inside of a human being that created them are in all of us. We're all easily mind fucked without critical thinking. We're all easily can outsource our identity to people that make us feel seen. And so I guess it's almost like a question for you is you and Bryce Hoffman from Red Team Thinking are the two smartest, most eloquent people I know when it comes to critical thinking. So if someone's listening to this, and maybe they don't consider themselves MAGA, because I don't think we probably get a lot of MAGA listeners on this show, but maybe they are more apathetic, or they're sort of like, I don't really get into politics. What is something that you would say to them about how to apply critical thinking to how they're doing civic engagement, how they're seeing what's happening in the United States? Does that make sense? Does that question make sense?
I think so. I think is the same way. I mean, critical thinking applies to everything you do in life and your life in every aspect of your life. But definitely when it comes to, your role in society and how societies evolve, you have the moral obligation to yourself first, but also to your fellow citizen and humans to not outsource your thinking. And it's very simple. If you're not thinking by yourself, somebody's thinking for you. And it's really very, very simple that way. I mean, you get to decide if you're gonna be the one producing your own ideas and making your own decisions and creating your own opinions, or you're gonna let somebody else, and it's not up to your choosing in most cases, that is gonna think for you, create the values that you're gonna defend, develop your own opinions, vote for you, decide on your life and your children's life and your community's life, because somebody is already doing that. So if it's not you, it's somebody else. And
Great.
that's all about critical thinking. It's very simple. If you're not thinking by yourself, somebody's thinking for you.
Right. Great. All right, let's wrap there. And thank you everyone for listening to the Massive Change Show. There's a couple of things to draw your attention to that will be ongoing. One is a new offering, cohort offering that is taught mostly by U of Virginia called Bootstrapping Justice. It's 4 modules for entrepreneurs that want to become real activists. Also, we have a new, mostly just an amplification campaign to promote businesses that are taking a stand against injustice. It's called Branding Up, #Branding Up. If you know of a business that is publicly making a stance against fascism, authoritarianism, injustice, racism, things like that, things that shouldn't be political issues but are, please tag us in a post about them, and we will promote them on our social media feeds. So that is it for now. Keep getting in some good trouble.